All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So, as we've now entered the final month of the regular season in Major League Baseball, there's still plenty that needs to be decided in regards to the postseason. No postseason spots have even been clinched as of yet, okay? But you look at the Cincinnati Reds, and in their first year under manager Terry Francona, they are looking to crash the postseason party for the first time in 5 years. And honestly, getting to the postseason, I really think would mean a lot for this Reds organization due to the fact that just 3 years ago they lost 100 games. Now, the Reds have hovered around 500 for the bulk of this season, but even with that, Cincinnati at one point, just a couple of weeks ago, was able to come within a half game of the final wild card spot in the National League before a stretch of 8 losses and nine games pushed them back a bit. And now, after the loss last night to Toronto, the Reds interplay today, and of course they're off, but they do interplay today, trailing the New York Mets by 5 games for that final wild card spot. And you have to wonder, after getting so close to the Mets just a couple of weeks ago, do the Reds have another push in them to try to not only catch the Mets but overtake them? Okay, and if the Reds are going to do that, it starts this weekend. Okay, they've got a big 3 game series at home with the Metropolitans. And remember, right out of the chute to start the second half of the season, Cincinnati took 2 out of 3 from New York at Citi Field. So I'm looking at it like this: the Reds, if they want to catch the Mets, first things first, they got to take care of their business this weekend rather, and they've got to go out there and do the small things. And I mean, some might listen to this and say, well, you know what? Why am I dismissing the Mets in regards to catching the Philadelphia Phillies for the top spot in the National League East? Okay, I'll tell you like this. Going into play yesterday, the Mets were down 5.5 games to the Philadelphia Phillies. And I know that these two NL East rivals do have a big 4 game series coming up. But the Mets, in my opinion, didn't do themselves any favors when fresh off of sweeping the Phillies at home last week. They then turned right back around and lost 3 or 4 at home to the Miami Marlins. So whatever momentum they had to try to go out there and catch Philly, because remember they did get it down to 4 games, they just shot themselves in the foot. So I think the Mets' best chance at the postseason at this point is getting the wild card, albeit they could still make up the ground. But with 22 games left, I think unless the Mets can go out there and sweep Philadelphia next weekend at Citizens Bank, I think more than likely they're going to be a wild card team. But nonetheless, you look at it and the Mets bats have woken up, okay? And that has allowed them and helped them to extend their lead over Cincinnati for that final wild card. All right. On top of that, they like in extending like with their bats getting going, it's one of those where that has allowed the Mets to, overcome their shaky starting pitching, as of late. And I'll say this: I'm talking about the Mets and Reds, but this wild card picture as a whole has gotten very interesting very quickly. You look at it, the fact that, the San Diego Padres have had their struggles as of late. And because of that, the Mets are nipping on their heels for possibly the second wild card spot in the National League. Also, there has been a recent surge by the San Francisco Giants, and of course, the Giants have had their up and down issues. And just when it looked like the Giants were done for this season, they basically threw in the towel at the trade deadline. The Giants are right back in the mix, and I think, say what you want about adding an additional wild card spot in each league. And of course, in the last decade or so, we've added 2 wild card spots in each league. But nonetheless, I think it is now given more teams hope to try to get to the postseason because 15 years ago, we're not having this conversation. 15 years ago, it's probably going to be the Cubs being the wild card representative of the National League, and that would be it. And of course, now things have changed. But nonetheless, getting back to the topic at hand, the Giants are right back in that mix. So are the Arizona Diamondbacks. You never know, but nonetheless, I think for the most part, the five teams that are going to be in the mix to get to the postseason as wild cards in the National League, I think it's going to be the Cubs, the Padres, the Mets, the Reds, and the Giants. And I think the Reds, it all depends, in my opinion, what Cincinnati is going to be capable of doing or not doing this weekend when they host the Mets. I'll tell you like this: the Reds coming down the stretch of playing with house money because nothing was expected of them this year as far as getting to the postseason. I did expect them to be an improved team under Terry Francona, which they are. He is one of the best managers of all time in MLB, as far as I'm concerned, and I think we're once again seeing that impact that he brings to the table. But nonetheless, Cincinnati, I still feel like they're playing with house money because they really have nothing to lose. But again, like I said, this is a big series coming up this week for them against the Mets, and especially with all of the starting pitching issues that New York has had lately, it's going to be imperative for the Reds to try to jump on them. But then also the way that the Mets bats have been rolling as of late too. Remember, the Mets, after losing 3 out of 4 to Miami, came right back and took 2 out of 3 against the Detroit Tigers. And in those first two games of that series, the Mets put up 22 runs against Tigers pitching. But you look at it, it's going to be an opportunity for the Reds to get back into this thing potentially. They've got some big series coming up themselves. Okay, right after the Mets, they're on the road to take on San Diego. That's the first 3 games of a 9 game stretch, and then Cincinnati still has series with the not the but they do have the Cardinals, but nonetheless the Cubs and the Brewers, two teams that are ahead of them in the NL Central, and then like I said, don't count out the Giants as far as trying to make a surge, albeit that the Giants do have multiple series with the Dodgers and Diamondbacks remaining. But the surge from the Giants subsequently has come in recent days is due to the fact that they've taken care of their business against the woeful Colorado Rockies. And again, this is a time of the year you have to take care of your business against the teams that you're supposed to beat, but it's not a guarantee. It's due to the fact that, like I always say, you just throw the records out of the window at this point, due to the fact that those guys on those bad teams, they're playing for jobs next season. So there's a hunger factor coming in there. But with all of that said, does Cincinnati have themselves another surge in them, or will the Mets put them out to pasture this weekend? I think this weekend is going to be very telling for the Reds as far as them possibly being able to catch the New York Mets. The New York Mets are, in my opinion, are the more talented team. And offensively, they have been playing like it in the last couple of games. So let's see if they're able to carry that over to the Reds. And again, the Reds pitching staff just gave up a lot of runs in this series against the Toronto Blue Jays. So if you're the Mets, you definitely want to keep that theme going. But nonetheless, it's September, the month before we get to the postseason, and I think things are very interesting in Major League Baseball right now as the battle is on to get those postseason spots. Let's see how things figure out in the wild card race in the National League, and like I said, let's see if the Reds have what it takes to catch the Mets, or can the Mets just put it into another gear and get themselves to the postseason for the second consecutive year. We've got to wait and see. But folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw on this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. And the same goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, you can check us out at the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports debating groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.